county standards. But this gives them a guideline that even though they may not be county maintained yet, the county could step in and maintain them if the 2 of the 3 up there decide to approve it at a later date.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion?
No, so at this time, you're just kind of presenting it for public viewing. Is there a point where we have to approve this then?
It'd be on the 20th of this month, is that correct?
Okay, so in the meantime, between now and then, any public feedback, or as we read through it, maybe we have our own feedback,
Yes, sir.
let you know, and we can modify this yet until then. Okay. Okay.
Okay. And this is a good segue into some other discussion that we have ongoing of, we've all received multiple letters, multiple emails, multiple phone calls on some of the conditions of the roads. So this is at least a way to start the conversation.
Yeah.
On
I mean,
what
in a
we're
way
looking
that
to
would
do.
protect that. I think the road that we're hearing the most about was not built to county standards, correct, up on Hilltop. I mean, it's a county road because they put it in and they platted it and they built homes up there and then kind of.
It was built to the county standards at the time, which was just
Yeah.
basically right away.
Yeah.
That's all we have is a drawing and some right of way. There's no thicknesses, there's no compaction testing, there's no inspection of it, there's no warranty of it. So this will hopefully eliminate a lot of those issues. If it's built to this standard, we would hope not to see the same issues that we're seeing in a lot of these older developments where it was built, where it was clean sand dumped on black dirt. It looks good till you get traffic on it, but there's nothing interlocking those sand particles together. And then when the county comes in and pulls the shoulders and brings that material back into the roadway with some binder in it, the 3 of you will get calls and emails of how we've destroyed lawns and it's unable to be mowed. So we're kind of in a rock and a hard place. If we can approve this at a later date and commission's in favor of it, I think it'll set us up for success in the future. New developments will know what it'll take to be built to our standard, so that way the county can accept maintenance of it at a later date if the commission decides. But if the commission doesn't accept it, the landowners will at least have a good base for a roadway.
All right.
So kind of going through here, looking, it does show some compacted area on the drawings. Does it give I'm not an engineer and I don't read these things on a regular basis. Does this tell you how compacted it needs to be, or testing that needs to be done to be accepted?
It would be wheel pack testing. A loaded vehicle, like a loaded dump truck, you would have it go over it and you would look at how much the wheel ruts are. It's a simple way. We can do it with our own equipment. We don't need any specialized equipment to do that.
Is that in dry conditions or wet conditions?
It is compaction conditions, so you have a moisture percentage the road needs to be at.
Okay.
And I believe I did read that in there, that you may do a 3-inch or a 6-inch lift on that compaction to answer that. I think I read that in here
Okay.
on your design. So I like the 6-inch or the 3, like Commissioner Liker said, depends on what the moisture is. So that's, to me, that's the important part. Build a good base and work off of it. So
Yeah, so on page 24 in the second paragraph, it talks about the compacted base.
Okay. Now, will providing these specifications, if a development at a later date decides to, well, if they put in these specifications, whether we accept them or not, will this, is there anything in here that allows for I know there's right-of-way, like what you referred to earlier. We have the right-of-way to go pull shoulders and through the bottom of the ditch. Is there anything that kind of spells that out, that that's going to be done on a regular basis or a routine basis to keep road shape? So I guess kind of what I'm asking or looking is, we'll start with some minimum standards for a road, but are we going to create minimum standards of maintenance to maintain these roads?
We can if the commission wishes to. I don't know if I would recommend that at this point in time. Just because if you say you're going to pull shoulders every 3 months, if we have a disaster and our staff's pulled out during that time, I mean, there's a lot of questions left up in the air.
I may not be, I guess, let me rephrase it. I'm not, maybe not referring to how often the maintenance occurs. However, we know we see plenty of these roads that maybe conform to this standard, but after 2 years, from our own public roads that they settle out, they
Yes,
flatten out. Whether it's due to use, moisture, or whatever. So I guess we have a minimum standard. How long do we need to watch that to make sure it maintains those standards?
So there is a warranty period that it talks about. It's a 1-year warranty on it that they would be responsible for. Any damages they would have to pay for. If it's a county roadway and county maintained roadway at the time of construction, there's a 1-year period that the developer or the HOA would be responsible for all the costs to repair the road and reestablish it back to county standards. So if there's a heavy flooding and it washes out, it's on them to at least pay for it or repair it themselves. A lot of that, the pulling of shoulders, I don't know if we need to have that spelled out in this document, because the people purchasing homes aren't going to read this document per se. A lot of that's going to come down to the commission supporting my staff and my department when we do that pulling of those shoulders, to support us saying why we're doing it.
Well, and I understand that. I guess I still go to, if we can pull shoulders, we can do all this. How do we say or continue our maintenance to keep it at our minimum? I guess that's because
Yeah.
you say they're not going to come read this. Well, as soon as we have a problem, as soon as there's a wet spell or a dry spell,
Yep.
and we have a pothole, we're going to have people look into what can I force the county to do.
Yes.
So I guess, are we going to sit out there, and if they go out with a tape measure and measure things off, are we going to meet standards? Is it going to be within the year? Is it going to be within a 2-year? How are we going to try and look at some of those?
And
Those are questions, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but those are questions that we'll probably need to look at some answers to here in the next couple of weeks.
I mean, and so that would be like continued maintenance. This is just the design plan for a
Okay.
brand new roadway. After it's been in place for 3 years, some things may have changed or moved. But the idea is the bones of the structure are correct. The
Okay.
drainage is sized appropriately. We have enough right of way. So if it's built off a major collector, minor collector, a local road, there's different right of way requirements we would have. Or if it's intended to be a brand new throughway, we have a requirement for additional right of way so we can have larger drainage structures. And we also have in there, depending upon what type of road it is and the expected traffic levels, what size storm they have to handle. So I think it'll help eliminate a lot of the issues we have with washing of roadways. Things were built potentially undersized. There was no real requirement to build it to a 15-year storm. It's built to a 2-year storm. This spells out what drainage structures they have to have and their sizing. We can't build everything to 700-year storms like KDOT, nor do I want to. We have enough bridges. But we can at least be prepared and build to our own standards, which is between a 5 and a 25-year storm, sometimes more. There might be 1 or 2 spots on some roads where we have adequate for like a 3-year storm. But those are earthen roads that are not regularly traveled. So I think this would set up the bones for a good road network for the future.
Okay.
If that answers your question, it probably doesn't.
Partially. I mean, it gets down to it. It's It's the starting point.
Yes, sir.
So we got to start with a good starting point. Any other discussion?
It's like I say, we got a good starting point to work off of it and build it to be good. Like I said, you're not gonna do a KDOT thing, but at least we have something here now.
And it'll provide good traveling
Yes.
roadways for our residents, whether they become county-maintained roadways or they're still private. It should still be a good road for those members that live out there.
Okay. Okay, well, if any,
Yeah, any updates on a bridge or grant applications or anything at this point?
They have made selections. They're waiting to get on the Secretary of Transport or the governor's list to give out the award notices. That was our last notice I heard back in July when I spoke with the Bureau of Local Projects at our meeting. That they've made decisions, they're not announced yet because they're wanting a nice announcement. They wouldn't even give me hints. I offered to take them out to lunch afterwards. That's a joke. We can't take them out to lunch. But
okay.
Thank
held the
you.
door for him. He
Right.
still wouldn't tell me. And Todd Self-Rank is the Bureau of Local Projects. The person we're being in contact with the most. He's retiring at the end of this month and moving on to greener pastures somewhere. He wouldn't tell us where that was yet either, just that he'd still be around, but no longer with the KDOT hat.
Got it.
So Dawn, the three of you have met her back at KAC. She'll be taking over for Todd's place.
Okay.
So there'll be some new faces at the booth there at KAC for LTAP and KCHA. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Brandon.
Okay, since we're skipping number 9, we move to topic number 10, final draft of 2025 Ellis County budgets. Darren?
Morning, Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator. The next step in the budget process is before you this morning. As the Commission is aware, back on July 18th, all the departments and the elected officials had submitted their next draft of the 2025 budget to the Commission. And then on July 18th, the Commissioners spent basically from about 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Meeting with everybody, all the department heads and elected officials, going over their individual budgets. And then we spent a couple hours there at the end, overviewing everything, going through all the notes from the day. And throughout that day, by the end of the day, I guess the commission made about $817,000 in cuts from the proposals that were before you on that day. So the budget that you see today is all those updates from the meetings on July 18th, as well as personnel cost changes that have happened since the last budget was put together about a month and a half ago. And just to kind of highlight some of the main topics of the budget that you have in front of you is the continued, I think, the commission is most proud of, I guess, of getting to a place where we are setting aside enough capital to fund projects and continue on with the asphalt and road and bridge maintenance plans that we have. So we'll be moving into the second year of that, which is approximately just over 2 times the amount of asphalt roads that are being touched every year, about 12 miles being surfaced with asphalt and then another 12 being seal coated. Into the plan which we have in the capital is doing some work with 48th Street, as well as possibly paving the road east of Home Depot all the way around to 270th back south to I-70. That's still contingent with a future meeting and visitation with the city of Hayes, as well as potentially maybe working with KDOT on a future project to work with the asphalt hot mix projects there. A couple additional employees with Public Works to assist with more maintenance on county roads out in the county. This is the second year. Well, this is the first year. 2025 would be the second year of the acquisition of the dispatch center from the city of Hayes. So that's the funding levels are coming more towards the county of those expenses. The Rural Opportunity Zone is moving into its second year, as well as the scholarships that the county commission has approved. And as the commission has talked about with the scholarships, from feedback from the community, instead of using property tax dollars for that, the change of using sales tax money is added into the commissioner's budget to offset that expense. The budget includes the outside agency funding that we discussed at the July 18th budget hearing, and there's a slight reduction in the amount of overall funding for outside agencies. The solid waste fund has included slight increases on the tipping scale fees for the waste the waste that are brought out to the solid waste division. And I believe Justin has let those be known to everybody as well, that those fees are being changed as of January. We had some capital improvement funds being set aside now for the fairgrounds to start making some improvements out there. We did remove the funding for the Enterprise Resource Planning Program. That's our accounting system, financial appraisal, and tax management system that the county is seeing issues with. But to save on tax dollars, we took that out of the budget. But at that point, that it does include employee COLA adjustments and salary adjustments. The salary adjustments for the steps would go into effect in January. And with all of that, minus any comments here today, the budget does look a little bit larger than what you would suggest. The $2 million additional funds that are not normal or because of the sale of the public works facility. We do have a couple people that have dropped by out of Public Works, and we're starting to collect names and information from those individuals to purchase that building. So although the budget looks like it's significantly increasing by more than $2 million, there's a $2 million revenue line item and a $2 million expense for that project to compensate for that building. If the county would only get $1 million, say, we would only have $1 million in, $1 million left. The rest of that would be still a wash, but would not be used. We just need to have the budget authority to transfer that money into capital once those funds are received. With that, at this point, with the cuts and everything that I basically mentioned here before you, our current mill levy for 2024 is 36.624, and the estimate that we have is if everything sits today, minus any final valuation changes that will be done in November, that mill levy from 36.6 will go down to just under 36 at about 39.984, which is the lowest the mill levy for the county will be since 2014, when it was slightly lower than that. So it does show that over the last several years, the mill levy has continued to decrease, although valuations have increased. The commission has done a great job in trying to continue to slightly decrease the mill levy with the valuational increases that have happened and not capture all that full tax value to save and help the local taxpayers on the county mill levy itself. With that, I'll take any questions. I know there are some.
Darren, you had stated we have some step adjustments included in COLA adjustments. When are those all scheduled to take place?
So by policy, with the pay plan that was put in, or the pay adjustment policy was put into place, the step raises would go into effect the second pay period in January. So that would be all employees that are not in their probationary period would move to the next step, no matter where they're at. The COLA adjustment, which is in the budget, not in each individual budget, but in a separate line item, so that way the commission can determine at what point the adjustments can be made, is yet to be determined by the commission. Some of the thoughts and some of the feedback that we got from department heads and employees in the Wage and Benefit Committee is the thought process of employees would appreciate anything, to be honest, but it would look good for a recruitment point for new employees, but also to our staff. If the step raises would go into place in January, as the policy states, maybe having those COLA adjustments go into place it'll change every year, that's by policy, but if you did those like in July, so that way you'd always have maybe possible of two different adjustments throughout the year.
Okay.
And it would be nice to have that set in place where the policy would say every year in July, every year in January you get your step raises, every year in July you'd have your COLA adjustments. But since COLA fluctuates every year and the commission has the authority to determine what that amount will be based on the Social Security Administration, that's why it was kind of left as to be determined. So that was somewhat of the thought process, but since that is a little bit farther down the line, but if the commission wants to discuss that, we can make any adjustments as needed with that.
I think that sounds like a good idea to kind of
Yeah.
have the COLA when it is able to be in place, put it in place in July. I do like that thought, because that's according to policy is if the county's in good shape and can provide that, to go ahead and provide it. I believe that's how it's read, is it not?
Correct, and it's always at like a minimum of 1%, so there'd never be a negative COLA.
Right.
That's also in there, but if it's 0.8, it'll just always be 0.1, but, and the reason we don't have that built in is because those numbers aren't actually officially released from the federal government, I believe, until October. There's estimates throughout the entire year, and I believe that estimate, last I saw, was about 2.6%.
Okay.
So that's why that's in there, and then even if the commission would determine now that would be the goal, is to get them in place in July of 2025, it would still be brought back to the commission in June, May, because we would know what the figures is, but the figure is from the Social Security Administration, but actually implementing it into the pay plan and having all the adjustments made for any employee turnover, new employees, et cetera. That way the budgets would be adjusted at that point accordingly, and not as of now almost
Right.
10 months out where there's a lot of unknowns out there.
I like that idea.
I'm gonna have David come up. I got some questions on the rural opportunity zone and just where we are, how it worked in this last year. We are funding part of it again, so if you would.
David
reference.
Klingen, Director with Grow Hayes. Rural Opportunity Zone, just a little history on it. That was a program designed, obviously, to encourage people that are coming to, like, Ellis County or into Hayes, and they have, like, tuition from college that they've been attending, and I'll give an example on that. If someone is coming from out of the state, say, out of University of Arkansas, which is a great place to go, by the way, but if they're coming there and they're moving to Ellis County and they have tuition debt still, they can apply for the Rural Opportunity Zone application. That one is financed by the County of Ellis and also by the City of Hayes. So depending on if they're living in the City of Hayes, they could apply for that. If approved, then for the next 5 years, potentially, they could get up to $3,000 back toward their tuition. So that's like a $15,000 incentive that person moving from wherever they've come from into our county or into our city, that's an incentive to help them pay off some of their student debt and an encouragement for them to come here. This is a big program that Lieutenant Governor Tolan has been focusing on. What I've been explained to from the RAWS program is he's actually looked back at the last 5 years of RAWS applicants and some of the disqualifiers that had happened in the past. He's removed some of them, so the RAWS program has been reaching out to applicants across Kansas, encouraging them to say, hey, would you like to apply for this application now, or you do qualify. And then just recently, Lieutenant Governor Tolan rolled out what's a program called Love Kansas. You can find that online. It's Love Kansas, all one word. And it is a program designed to basically get people to come back to Kansas. It's a boomerang type program, and RAWS is one of those tools that's being used in there. We've had this program now. Ellis County and Hayes are both financing the RAWS at $15,000 each. Applicant-wise, I think I've had 6 that have applied through the RAWS program, 2 that have been approved, and the other 4 are pending. And by pending, that means that there's not a disqualifier, but there's still something they need to turn in, some sort of information. A good example of the one I was just giving, they needed to turn in some just information showing that they were living in Fayetteville, Arkansas at that time. And once they can prove that, then that checks that box, and then they can get approved for that process. It's just, for them, it's just one more step. This isn't one of those programs where we just tout it out there and say, hey, you've come here, by the way, apply for RAWs. It's a great incentive, but it really is to encourage people that are coming to our county and coming to our city. So like we have CVB, Melissa Dixon, that when people come here and she's giving them a tour, that's another great way to incentivize people, if they do have something like that, to apply for, and they know it's another incentive to bring them to this area, to this district. I don't know if that answers.
We have one approved, right?
Technically
Two
two. The
approved.
second one is final stages of getting
We
some
have
final
four
documentation.
or five more that are in that application, I guess. They'll kind of stop it in September, from my understanding, right? And then they'll finish up those approvals, hopefully all 7, however, get approved.
The
and then they'll-
application period ends at the end of September, and then
Okay.
they'll bill the county, whatever is complete approval process at that time. However, those that are still pending, as Dave said, we have between 4 to 6 that are in various stages that are likely to get approved, but not likely enough to be done by September of this year. But they'll still be able to move through their process from October 1st to January 1st. And if they get approved during that time, they would then get their award letter and approval for January of '25, which would fall into the next year's budget of 2025 billing for RAWS applicants.
and where-
Most of the cases, and I follow up with the RAWS office about once every 2 weeks, most of the time they're waiting on the applicant to finish filling out something. And so the process works, if it's Neil Younger, he applies for it, starts the process, but he needs to go back into his account every so often just to see if there's any follow-up information he needs to do. And from what I've been told, all the ones that are pending have one form or another of information they just need to get turned in, so they can finish that application process. So it's been looking good. I expected it to be this pace for the first year or so, because it's really an education program for us to educate companies and businesses. Hey, if you're thinking about coming here, here's another incentive. Why this would be a great place to be. This is a way to help pay back some tuition, and go that route. And then it seems to be paying off, because as I meet new people coming in or people that are doing the tour of Hayes, and we just talk about it, we've had one of them that has since applied for that program for the city of Hayes.
What kind of, you probably can't specifically where they work, but is there certain industries that, like any of, work for the county currently, but
For city of Hayes, the ones that I've know applied, 2 of them have been in the medical field, and one is an engineering type field.
And who administers this, the RAWs? Is this all through the state, or is this have some local control?
The RAWS program, so any information goes, for the county, goes through Darren. I think you're the point of contact.
Just for notification on our end, but when they
Okay.
ask questions, I mean, we can answer basic questions, but when they fill out their forms, go through the process, the approvals, the reviews, and everything is 100% through the Department of Commerce. And then we just get notification through a new website that they just launched to be able to go in. Like I can see that we have 16 applicants throughout the process that have applied, and the various stages of where they're at, whether they're approved, awaiting documentation, denied, et cetera.
How does that work if we have, let's say, 16 applicants and we've only funded 15,000?
So on a waiting pending list,
Okay,
then they would fall over to the next year, and then we could, the commission could then decide, well, if we're funding 10 currently, but there's 10 on the pending list, the commission would have the decision to either increase that for the next year to allow more in, and then continue. Once you start, you have to
you have to
fund
at
those
least
for,
finish.
yeah, the next several years to.
so we would still continue to encourage people to apply, because next year we have to fund the ones that are here, but I think we only added 5 more slots. But if people apply and we get 10 people apply, it would kind of tell us that, oh, okay, well, they're getting filled up, so maybe in our budget for 2026, then we would consider adding more funding to it.
Correct.
Yeah, as long as people are kind of applying, but if nobody's applying, then it kind of tells us that, well, so that part of the program probably doesn't go away, just keep
Right.
encouraging people to apply.
Now, to answer the portion that Nathan is, or Commissioner Liker, is that if you're maxed out on count, but a couple of those applicants waiting are Hayes residents, then we just contact Topeka and we say, hey, this applicant actually is a Hayes resident, and they can still apply for the RAWs through Hayes, and that way they're not on a waiting list. That process could happen as well, because I think some that are on your county list are Hayes residents. So I'm not sure how they, that's the one piece I haven't figured out yet, is how they go, okay, Ellis County versus Hayes, but you have some, I think, that have Hayes residents. So the more that we can get them through that process and not on a waiting list, the better they receive the benefits of being in here.
And speaking of that, we're getting 10,000 to market, correct, this program, and we have some options to look through that. Now, does that have to be spent this year in 2025, or how's that?
For the essence of not having to create a separate fund to hold that and not knowing if there would be ever another round of grant funds come available, it would be ideal to have it spent. It doesn't have to be 100% for marketing RAWs. And as we spoke last night, I had some ideas, and I have a note still to send you the email for the webinar, but it doesn't have to be spent, but if the commission if it's on, I think I have it or tentatively on the August 20th agenda, if the commission would rather not spend all of that now and wait till next year to use some of it, I'm not sure when we'll get that $10,000 check from the state, but if that's the case, we'll have to put it into a separate fund, so that way it doesn't roll over as unencumbered cash in the general fund at the end of the year.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That's good, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Just,
David.
Dave, thank you for being an SME, and thank Mr. Burgess for inviting you up and getting good clarification for our community, and appreciate that.
Okay, are there any further comments or discussion on the budget as presented? We are not approving this today. I don't believe, no, we are not approving this today. This will be, if there's no further changes, we'll adopt on the 20th, is that correct?
Sorta.
Well, it's a preliminary.
So any final changes today, I'll look at the COLA adjustments, and that'll free up a little bit to make it more specific into the budget, get that figured out, and then on the August 20th, it'll be back before you. All the state documents will be on the agenda, and the certification pages that would be given to the county clerk. At that day, you won't approve the budget, you'll authorize it to be published, which has to be published, I believe, 10 days before the actual hearing dates, which August 20th is our last commission meeting, but it's more than the 10 days required for the publication notice. Then on September 10th, the commission meeting in September, I don't want to say the wrong day in open meeting here. September 10th is our public comment and hearing for the budget and the R&R. And at that point is when you'd actually approve the budget and been passed along to the county clerk.
Okay.
Okay. Can it be, you can put it on next week's agenda as well, just again as another review of the budget? If there's, the only other comment I have at this time, I do want to thank Brendan McKay and the Public Works, his efforts, as we discussed with him in our meeting. That department is the biggest part of the budget and gets looked at and scrutinized the most, but through his process, ultimately I think we kind of actually cut it by some financial movement. His budget we kind of ended up cutting, but at the same time we're adding 3 employees to it and getting a grader. So again, from a roads perspective, we're going from 12 grading districts to 13. So the idea then is for our road maintenance to, each of those districts shrinks a little bit more, which means I can get on those roads a little bit more frequently to help address some of the questions and concerns that the county residents have for us. So that was probably, it's kind of highlighted in here, but that was probably the biggest achievement I think we worked through, and I appreciate Brendan working through some of his budget as we were sitting there and moving some things around to be able to accomplish that for us. So.
Darren, what was the R&R mill rate that was presented early? Do you remember that?
The actual R&R rate.
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, it's right here. I just don't know it off the top of my head. It's 34.967, and as the budget sits, the current mill is 36.624, so that's about 1.6 mils in change, and the proposed way it sits now is 35.984, so.
So about 1 mil.
About 1 mil,
1
which
mil
is about
less
$1
for the R&R.
million.
532,000.
Or 5,
1 mil.
okay.
It-
And that can almost all be attributed to, we did the employee pay study, and we agreed that we were going to get that done and implement it. We weren't going to just do a study and then find out that we needed to pay everybody and then not. So we worked to get that implemented. We also have the dispatch coming on board, and so that, to me, that can almost be attributed to just accomplishing that and going to pay. So each department themselves is pretty much maintaining what they did last year, and the only increase we saw that across each department is wages, and I can live with that, with our mill lowering the mill, but again, property valuation budget going up by 500,000 or whatever, but that's can almost all be attributed to just that pay study and getting everybody into the right spot, which makes budgeting easier. It actually made it easier this year because it was all just kind of in there, and then going forward as we do COLAs and step increases. So to me, that's a pretty easy justification on the budget.
I agree.
One thing that Commissioner Burgess asked me to mention, and I wrote some numbers down, is regards to the sales tax and how that's impacting our
Yep.
budget.
So we did have and I brought that up to you last night because the Hayes Post, Kim Rupp with the city of Hayes there's kind of an article in his comments about just watching it carefully with our sales tax and the potential of the economy softening, how that could impact the city, of course, or really one, but we do have a sales tax and we've discussed this in the past of maybe watching that cautiously.
Correct, yeah, the sales tax that we have in place for the 2025 budget is representative of an estimate that I look at every single month's estimate, or actuals, all the way back through 2020 in October when it started. The first 2 years for the sales tax we saw growth between 1% and 2% each year. To date, through 2024, we're seeing more of a decline than what the city of Hayes is having on their sales tax. I don't remember if they were down about 1%, but to date, between the two different funds, we're down between 5% and 6% on each. However, that's for 2024. For 2025, still have the budget. I didn't increase the amounts of revenue that would be collected for a sales tax. The estimates for collections of sales tax above anything from what 2024 is. 2024 is still a conservative enough estimate that we're still going to collect and be able to transfer into the general fund the amount that we had budgeted for. And if that continues to stay at a 5 to 6% decrease as it is now, it's rebounding slightly as the year progresses. So hopefully come the end of 2024, it won't be, maybe it'll only be 3 or 4%. But with that same trend, looking at next year, we should still be, should still collect enough from the two different sales tax. Like, for instance, right now, just with the general sales tax fund, for the actuals this year, we're only using 96.5% of it, and the rest is staying in that sales tax fund. So we still do have a little bit of leeway, but as Kim Rupp with the city said, it is cautionary. I do track it every month. I fill out reports and look at trends to make sure that if that needs to be adjusted in the future, we can do that. But as of now, I feel confident in where we're at, that that won't impact our 2025 general fund budget transfers at all.
Okay. Very good. Any other discussion, Mr. Younger?
I have none. We spent a lot of time and we got it where we want it, and I hope our community is, happy with it. I know we all are, so maintain and a little less since 2014, so I'm good with it.
All right. If there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and move on to County Administrator report.
Nothing really today. Caught me off guard there. I wasn't planning on it. I guess I did go up to the new Public Works facility, had a meeting with their staff and their foreman up there. I would encourage, or if the commission would like, reach out to myself or Brendan and we could take you on a tour up there. They're doing an amazing job. They're still working hard on the schedule and a lot of improvements on the inside. I haven't been out there for more than a month with being gone on vacation, but it's looking pretty impressive and nice, and a new facility on the inside and out. But other than that, that's all I got.
Okay. County Commissioner reports. Commissioner Younger.
Okay. First thing is make sure everybody gets out and votes. And I would like if Bobby could do some clarification on the canvassing, if you would please, on that you spoke with the other person that we were supposed to both get different canvassers since we were on the ballot.
Okay, I think I know what you're asking. Bobby Drowning, County Clerk. I had originally said that Commissioner Liker and Commissioner Younger should not be part of the canvass when I do canvass on August 19th at 8:30 because they're on the ballot. When I had my conference call with the Secretary of State's office last week, that same subject was brought up by another county, and he said that all commissioners can do the canvass as that is their normal duties that they're supposed to do. So Commissioner Younger and Liker, you both can be on the canvass board on August 19th.
Okay,
Is that what you're asking?
that's what I was asking.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, out in the community, in the rural, somehow somebody misled several different people that Ellis County is not necessarily supporting, but sending kids to Fort Hays and other universities with our taxpayer dollars. And I said, no, that is not true. And I asked if they were referring to our new, scholarships. And they said no. So wherever that come from, clarification, unless somebody tells me something different, that we're writing a check for somebody to go to Fort Hays or other colleges, that's not right. Being with the scholarships that, I've had almost 15 years of experience with them now. They were asking about the scholarships, and I said them are taken into big consideration what and where these, kids are doing just to help them out. So unless somebody else tells me anything different. The other one, Public Works, Colton Keller. Happy birthday to him. I did get the experience or luxury of going out to Ellis County Fair and got to judge pasta with Monique Kerner. That was exciting. The other deal, I would like to recognize also Mike Graham for not necessarily out in the county, but it's still county dirt, what he has done for our community as far as, different apartments, different projects that he's done. Another one that he's going to start down here on Walnut. Also, I did attend the city meeting. And then I also, the past county clerk, Donna Mask, has asked me to come down to the K-State building and get involved with a woman from Japan, sort of like a 4-H type deal. It was interesting what they could do with a piece of paper and make it very strong, so that was very interesting. Then I also did go to the child task meeting. I've got a brochure up here, what the Hayes Lions Club does for the kids, and that's going to be work in process, where they have he calls it gym, hunting grade. He calls it a $8,000 computer, which can tell the kids which eye is bad. I like that because of at least their parents have some kind of knowledge of what's going on with their children with looking at all the phones and the tablets, and it's going to be a thing. Also, thank all the employees, especially Bobby, for running a good vote, and all her employees that she is overseeing, and the volunteers that all come in and do it. The volunteer thing. Also, at the Lions meeting, Gail Wickham with the Hayes Rec come in talking about volunteers. They're also looking for volunteers, so if somebody has a little bit extra time to go be a coach, it's exciting. I done it. I would say everybody ought to experience that. Also, like to thank the City of Hayes and Brendan for corresponding with the new railroad crossing at 13th there, and or whatever you want to call it, Old 40, and getting that speed bump out of there. So we can thank them, but we've also done work for the city also. And then also, Brendan, thanks for the street repair in Munzer that was falling apart, and for getting that done, and there's a lot of people commented on it, so very good job and your employees. And I did talk with Brandon a little bit on the Ellis Avenue. I had drove it. People still think it's a racetrack. I drove 55 on there, and somebody blew by me like nothing. So it needs a little TLC, but he's going to get it. Moisture needs to be here to do that, and hopefully that's coming here at the end of the week. And if ever anybody's looking for things to do this weekend, the RPM Speedway, and also don't forget the Herzog Fest in Victoria. So that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Burgess?
Yeah, I want to thank Justin Craig. I took a tour of the environmental services last week and just got a little more insight with the department. I think some work needs to be done on the scale in the building that they move the trash into the trailers. There's some guttering and some issues with that, maybe expansion at some point. So I think that'll be something to have in our conversations on improvements out there, but I appreciate his time. I went to the City Hayes Commission last week and then the Ellis Council meeting last night. And then I do encourage everybody to vote in the primary today, and these 3 hotly contested primaries, I wish you luck. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, I taped a short with Gary Shorman on Ford Evers, so, and then I've had plenty of phone calls with Darren and others on some upcoming issues, so we will address those in the future. I don't have much of a report at this time.
I do. I forgot about Jeff. I had to meet Lori up at the 22nd Street building, and he kind of gave me a little tour of his little neat office, because the last time I seen it, it was metal studs, and he was very proud of that. So that was a nice short little meeting, but a lot of stuff in there. A lot. Don't let me in there.
One last comment before we adjourn. I just want to question Darren, have we started, or how is the project on the air conditioning going over at your building? Where are we standing?
It's making the building warmer. The construction company is doing great. They're very communicative and responsive. They started yesterday morning. They have tore out all the ductwork that needed to be replaced because of the upsized units. And all of the units were delivered yesterday and brought in this morning. The school district was notified as they're purchasing the old units. And their goal is to have all 7 rooftop units replaced today, and most of them back on, not necessarily all of them in the basement. There's 7 total, 4 upstairs, 3 downstairs. So hot days, but it's today's going to be the test to see if they can get them all swapped out. So it's going good. We'll see. They've been great to work with.
Okay, good deal. Very good. With no executive sessions, we will adjourn this meeting at 9:43.